What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with another one in my Versus series. I don't know what else to call it. I don't really like that name, but it's when we pit one product against a comparable product, try them on half of our faces and see how they perform. I've done this before with the Rimmel Spice palette versus the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. We have done the Norvina palette versus the Nabla Soul Blooming palette. I've done it with some eyeliners and stuff, and generally you guys always think it's a good time and always request more. Every time I do it, you're like, please do more of these comparison videos. So here we are. We're doing another comparison video. I also ran a poll on my Instagram yesterday and asked you guys if you wanted to see these two palettes specifically, and 95% of you said yes. So today we'll be trying Urban Decay Naked Heat on half of our face, Charlotte Tilbury Stars in Her Eyes, Stars in Your Eyes? I never get that straight. Let me check. Stars in Your Eyes. Sorry. On this half of my face. I'm also going to swatch the shades on my arm that I think are the most comparable from the palette, so you guys can get an idea of how similar they actually are, and generally which one I think is more worth your time than the other. Before we get started, I wanted to mention every time I wear this sweater, somebody asks me where it's from, and I thank you. I'm glad you like it. It is from Urban Outfitters. I got it last year, and I don't think it's available anymore. I will check the website one more time, and if it is still there, I will link it down below. And I know people always ask and always send me messages about this sweater, and I'm sorry. I wish I could link you guys to it. I wish they still had it because I would buy it in more colors because it is one of my favorites. Please don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video if you don't mind taking a second to do that, because it really helps me out. And if you are new here, go ahead and subscribe, because I would love to have you around for more videos in the future. And I would hate it if you forgot and then lost me and we never found each other again. The look that we're creating today is extremely simple, but the goal of today is not to make an interesting look, but to really use the shadows in a way that we can compare how they perform next to each other. Sorry if this is my most basic ass look of all time, but I wasn't about to try to do a cut crease and then compare, you know what I mean? I have really sweaty pits right now. Oh God. It's chilly in here and I'm still sweaty and I don't understand why. Okay, that's enough of that. I think that's all we have to talk about before we get started. So let's just jump into these two palettes and start swatching the comparable shades on my arm. So before sitting down and filming this video, I wanted to go through the palettes and kind of preemptively look at what shades I thought might be dupes for each other, so we could just swatch those and compare them directly. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that the Charlotte Tilbury palette actually doesn't have individual shade names. There are 4 groups of 3 shadows. You have Love Eyes, Power Eyes, Happy Eyes, and Confident Eyes. So I will refer to them as Love Eyes 1, Love Eyes 2, Love Eyes 3, so on and so forth, so that way we just have an individual denominator for what we are comparing to the Urban Decay. I hope that makes sense. I think that's the best way to do it. Each palette has 12 shades, and out of those 12 shades, I found 7 matches. So a little bit more than half the palettes are dupes. So neither of these are a direct dupe or a direct copy, but they're definitely really similar. From Charlotte Tilbury, we're gonna go into Love Eyes 1. From Urban Decay, we're gonna look at Hot Spot. From Charlotte Tilbury, we're gonna look at Love Eyes 2. To Urban Decay, Bang Bang. From Charlotte Tilbury, we're gonna use Love Eyes 3. And from Urban Decay, we're gonna use Juicy. From Charlotte Tilbury, we're gonna go into Power Eyes number 3. And from Urban Decay, Turn On. From Charlotte Tilbury, Happy Eyes number 1. And from Urban Decay, Ambitious. From Charlotte Tilbury, Confident Eyes number 2. And from Urban Decay, Drunk Dial. From Charlotte Tilbury, Confident Eyes number 3. And And from Urban Decay, Bing. I'm going to do a third swatch on this one because I think Devilish from Urban Decay is also pretty similar. So that is Devilish from Urban Decay. So before we get started on the look, I'm going to be doing Charlotte Tilbury on my right side and Urban Decay on my left side. The way that I do this is I make sure that I use all the same brushes for each. I just clean each brush off on a color switch sponge in between. That way there's no difference between what brush I'm using, because sometimes blending something with a lesser quality brush can really affect how it sits on your eyes. So if I switch from one brush to the other, it's not really fair to one palette or the other. So we make sure we use the same ones. This might not be the most creative look I've ever done. It's actually most likely going to be a little bit boring. If you want to see more creative looks with these types of shades, I'll put it up here on the screen. I already did 3 looks with the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette. So if you are looking for your cherry mauve tones in a more creative fashion, that's where to go for that. To start, I'm going to pick up a BH number 5 brush. On the Charlotte Tilbury side, I'm going into Love Eyes number 3, putting that through my crease. Lately, I've been bringing my crease shade up really high because I find that it just gives me more space to work with on my lids and makes my eyes look more open than they really are, which is nice. I like that. I'm just blending the edge of that out with a Sigma E40 blending brush. And on the left side, the Urban Decay side, doing the same thing on the same brush with the shade Juicy. I already know that Juicy is much more peachy. The funny thing with these comparison videos sometimes is that when everything comes together as a look, these little differences don't stand out quite as much anymore. Into Love Eyes number 1 on, whoa, almost dropped it. On my Sigma E40 blending brush, I'm just gonna put some of that on, tap it off, and then just use that to blend up near my brow bone. And on the Urban Decay side, doing the same thing with Hotspot. On the Urban Decay side, I'm going to go into Devilish on a BH number 7 brush. I'm just putting that through my crease to deepen it. And on the Charlotte Tilbury side, going in with Confident Eyes number 3. The most similar, in my opinion, to all of them was Happy Eyes number 1 and the color Ambitious. So I'm going to do those all over the lid. And I'm going in with the brush dry because I want to compare how each one performs directly out of the palette. That is giving me what you could refer to as a buttload of fallout. For the Urban Decay side, going into Ambitious on that same brush. Fallout from that one too, but not as bad as this side. On the Charlotte Tilbury side, I'm going to go into Confident Eyes number 2 on a pencil brush and just pack that on the outer corner. Again, even with a different brush, the shimmers from the Charlotte Tilbury one are giving me quite a bit of fallout. And on the Urban Decay side, I'm going to do the same thing with Drunk Dial. So far, I'm digging the shimmers from the Urban Decay palette a lot more than the ones from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. Even though the ones from the Charlotte Tilbury palette, they look better swatched, I think the Urban Decay ones look better on the eye. Like, I feel like this eye has so much more going on than this one at this point. Next, from Charlotte Tilbury, we're going to dip into Power Eyes number 3 pencil brush. And I'm going to place that between where you place the darker and the lighter shades on the lid. On the Urban Decay side, we're going to do the same with the shade Turn On. For the underneath portion of the lid, I'm going to go into Love Eyes number 3 from Charlotte Tilbury, BH number 7 brush that we started with. And I'm just going to bring that down pretty low underneath my eye and connect that into the top. Kind of make this more of a soft, smoky look. And doing the same thing on the Urban Decay side with Juicy again. From Charlotte Tilbury, I'm going to go into Confident Eyes number 3 on a MAC 219S pencil brush. And on the Urban Decay side, do the same thing with Devilish. And finally, for the inner corner, I'm going to go into Love Eyes number 2 from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. And from Urban Decay, we're going into Bang Bang. So that's pretty much it for the eye look, as besides like the finishing stuff like liner and lashes. So I want to zoom in before I do that so you guys can get a good look at how each side performed. Honestly, they performed really similarly. The Charlotte Tilbury palette has a little bit more fallout, specifically with the shimmer shades, but it also, I felt like the darker matte shades were a little bit more rich. So like I have more definition in the outer portion of the eye here where I put down the dark shade on the Charlotte Tilbury side. Also, my eye is watering on this side, so you can just ignore that. My eyes water really bad underneath the lighting, so I'm just gonna wait for that to dry and fix it up. But just ignore that outer portion. That's not the palette's fault. But yeah, let's zoom in so you guys can get like a real close up and personal look. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury side, and this is the Urban Decay side. I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup, including mascara and lashes and liner for this look, and then we will discuss which palette I think is better for who. So I went ahead and finished the rest of my makeup, tossed on some Cocoa Lashes Venus lashes and the kind of metallic burgundy glittery ombre lip that I've been doing a lot lately. If you're interested in how I did this lip, I actually did like a little mini get ready with me where I did this lip on my Instagram in like a little video. Also, are you following me on Instagram yet? Because if you're not, rude. All right, the nitty gritty on these two palettes. Urban Decay is $49 for 12 shades. Charlotte Tilbury is $75 for 12 shades. Each of the shades in the Urban Decay palette is 0.038 ounces, and each of the shades in the Charlotte Tilbury palette is 0.031 ounces. So not only is the Charlotte Tilbury Stars in Your Eyes palette a little bit more expensive, okay, it's a lot more expensive, okay? It's not a little, let's not mince words here, it's expensive. But it also has less shadow in each pan than the Urban Decay counterpart. As far as how they performed, I felt like they were pretty similar. Everything from both palettes blended easily. I had no trouble blending anything really at all. In the Charlotte Tilbury palette, I felt like the shimmer shades, they feel creamier and they definitely swatch a little bit more pigmented, but they have a lot more fallout, and I don't feel like that softness and that more pigmentation when you do it on your finger really translates much to the actual application to the eye. The shimmers in the Urban Decay palette are less buttery to the touch, and they don't swatch as smoothly and evenly as the ones in Charlotte Tilbury, but this is why I always say that swatches really don't mean anything, because I feel like the ones in the Urban Decay palette gave me just as much color payoff. Now, as far as color selection, a little less than half the palette is different. The Urban Decay palette definitely has more variety in the deeper matte shades, that is for sure. And the Charlotte Tilbury palette definitely has a lot of shimmers like in this section that the Urban Decay palette is lacking. So if you really like bright, pretty, shimmery shades and that's what floats your boat, that might make you like the Charlotte Tilbury one more. That is the second shade from the Power Eyes section, and it's very, very bright and very, very pretty. And it's something that is not present in the Urban Decay palette. As far as the packaging is concerned, the Charlotte Tilbury one, it's got like an old Hollywood vibe. It definitely feels very luxurious, especially with the background of where the pans are set being gold. It looks very like, this reminds me a lot of the makeup that my grandma used to have on her vanity. She had like a lot of old vintage makeup that she hadn't used in years. It was just sitting around, and all the packaging was very like kind of like art deco-y like this, and like very luxurious and pretty, and that this kind of has that vibe, which I like. The Naked Cherry palette, on the other hand, also kind of gives me vintage vibes. Like I mentioned in my 3 looks palette, the cherries definitely give me like a 1950s feel with a little bit of an update. It's really just a matter of taste because the packaging on both is really nice. I do feel like physically the packaging on the Naked Cherry palette is more substantial. It's definitely heavier, and I feel like it would be a little bit more sturdy if you were going to travel with it. Obviously, the looks turned out super duper similar, so you definitely can get similar looks out of it. Personally, for me, when the price is taken into consideration, I think it's a no-brainer to go with the Urban Decay palette. But one thing I could see is if you're looking for a luxury gift for somebody, especially with holiday coming up, and like if you're shopping for maybe somebody who's got more I don't want to say mature taste because that makes it sound like this is an old lady palette. It's not. But if you're shopping for somebody who's like maybe got like a little bit more of like simple, classic, sort of like that type of a luxury taste, this would make a really, really beautiful gift for them, and I don't think they would be disappointed with the contents of the palette at all. It's a very, very nice palette. But if you're just kind of like, yeah, I want like a mauve tone nude neutrals palette, which one do I get? This right here. Personally, where I stand on it, obviously, everybody has their own take on these things, so please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think after seeing them perform side by side. Which one do you think works better? Which one do you think you'd be more inclined to go buy? I would love to hear what you think because my opinion is just one person's opinion. But honestly, both palettes are really nice, and I don't think that you'd be disappointed with either of them unless you were looking for more color, in which case you're barking up the wrong tree here, my friend. A few of you on Instagram had requested that I do a comparison with these palettes and a drugstore palette that would also be comparable, and I think that's a really great idea, but I actually don't have any drugstore palettes that I think are comparable dupes to this. Somebody did point out that Rimmel has a really similar palette, and we know from past videos that Rimmel really likes to dupe the naked palettes, so I'm sure it's very, very similar, but I haven't gotten my hands on that Rimmel palette to test it yet, so I can't really speak on that. But if you're looking for something similar from the drugstore, they are out there for sure. Please don't forget to leave a like on this video because that really helps me out and I always, always appreciate it. And also, if you are new here, don't forget to hit subscribe because I would love to have you stick around for more videos in the future. And like I said earlier, please go ahead and follow me on other social media. I'm at Miss Quinface pretty much anywhere you want to find me. But mostly I post on Instagram. I post a lot of my Instagram stories. I post lots of more like creative makeup looks. I post all the makeup looks I do on here. If they photograph well, I post them over on Instagram. I unbox all my PR on my stories. We run lots of polls and stuff. It's a good time and I would love to have you around. Last night I had you guys tell me your weirder stories and wow, blew my socks off. Blew my socks right off my feet. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this comparison helpful if you were going back and forth between these two palettes. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.